I think we're just going to briefly talk about how assistive technology and technology in general has expanded in MMSD. At the beginning of the year, we were given the opportunity to look at funds, ESSER funds, and consider how we could creatively spend those to include to support our students in the district directly. And we knew we had a larger population of students who were homebound and were potentially going to remain homebound. So we wanted to make sure that we are addressing this need in a way that was going to be a long-term solution and not just something that would be temporary in response to COVID, but how can we support our students who are homebound? And Carrie shared those statistics, which I think are just staggering to think about the 5% increase. Like, this is not going away. We are going to continue to see a lot more students in our schools with more and more complicated diagnoses, and we've got to figure out ways that they can be included. So our big idea was that for any student that is in need, we will use robots as the interface to provide inclusive school experiences that are accessible anywhere. Students will create relationships, stay connected, feel valued, and have choice in how they learn while navigating a robot. Now, with this project, we've obviously are looking at a continuum of support. So we've definitely gotten really creative, anywhere from supporting students like Leani, which they're going to share their story in a minute here, all the way to students who are maybe just out for a short-term need and have a surgery that they went through and they just need to be in their classes for a little bit. So it's been really great that we've been able to challenge this, the use of this technology to be creative in how we engage students in many ways, beyond just the Zoom. So how can students who are home, instead of using Google Meet or Zoom, how can they more actively engage in their classrooms? And so we're going to have Leani share about her robot and her experiences as well. And Nicole will be an awesome advocate here to share some of the experiences too.
Thank you. I'm just gonna, at first, before we have Leani try to talk to you some, I'm gonna give you a more detailed introduction to her life as a medical child, why her learning at home is the safest option, and also the purposes and the different pieces of assistive technology that she uses. Leani shares her life with a medical diagnosis called spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA, and she has the most severe form of that. It is genetic and it is considered terminal, and there is no cure for it currently. We were diagnosed with this at 5 months old, and at that time, we were told there are no treatments. The average age our daughter was going to live to was 8 months, with only a 5 to 10% chance of living beyond the age of 2 years. We were told that her muscles would continue to get weaker and atrophy until she had no muscle movement besides blinking. And these children typically pass from respiratory complications. This diagnosis creates extremely weak muscles, including those needed to walk, sit, crawl, breathe, swallow, eat, and speak. However, this does not affect her emotions or her ability to build relationships. It does not affect her intellect or her ability to learn. And it does not affect her humor or her ability to express what we call sassitude. As you heard Carrie mention about new treatments coming about, Leani has become a trailblazer in this. When she was born, there was no cure and no treatment. However, in this picture that you see, this is the first time that her dad and I had hope after her diagnosis. This is when we learned that she was going to be eligible for the clinical trial for the first genetic treatment drug for this diagnosis. She started receiving this drug at age 11 months, and she has now been getting stronger and not weaker. And now, 6.5 years later, there are 3 FDA-approved treatment drugs. And there's also genetic testing in Wisconsin and many other states for infants to be tested for this diagnosis. If infants are given these new treatment drugs right away upon birth, it gives them the chance to be able to sit, to walk, and eat, and talk, have much less complications than Leani has just by receiving treatment at birth versus Leani receiving it at 11 months. So moving on, why is it safer for Leani to learn at home? So these pictures are pictures of her in her favorite positions, both in her chair and in her stander. However, she's not able to be in these positions for a long amount of time. Even though these do encourage her learning from a different perspective, it's actually easiest for her to be able to breathe when she's lying down. In addition to that, she is fed through a G tube, and she's on a strict schedule. Her food and her medications are kept refrigerated all day long. She has several medical machines. She is trached and on a ventilator 24/7, and we essentially have a mini ICU in our home. And I'll give you an idea of the kind of setup that we have. She also requires frequent mouth and trach suctioning, and that our suction machine is not quite as quiet as the suction machine at the dentist. So there would be frequent interruptions if she were in a school. In addition to that, she requires 90-minute respiratory treatments twice a day, and that is to keep her well. Even though she's not considered immunocompromised, she is considered respiratory compromised, and a simple cold can increase her treatments from 90 minutes to 2 hours and doing those every 2 hours around the clock. So essentially she's getting a 2-hour treatment. She has 2 hours of rest, 2-hour treatment, 2 hours of rest, 24 hours a day. A cold that would cause you and I to be in bed for 2 or 3 days causes Liani to do these treatments for 2 to 3 weeks, and eventually usually ends up in a hospital stay. So even before COVID, she needed to be instructed at home in order to keep her safe. And so now I'm going to go into a little bit of her setup. So first of all, at the top of the picture, you can see Liani relaxing in her bed. She's got black leggings on and you can just see her torso. And then right above her is her eye gaze communication device. I'm going to go through kind of how that works and how she uses that and what that looks like in a little bit. In addition to that, over on the right in the blue, it's actually separate from the other machines that you see on the bottom. This is her tower, and on it is her ventilator, her humidifier, her feeding machine, and also her pulse oximeter as we monitor her heart rate and her oxygen levels around the clock. And then at the bottom, these are her various respiratory machines that we need to use to keep her safe for her treatments, and sometimes used throughout the school day as well. And then finally, the big, huge box at the bottom is her medical supply chest. And yes, if you can't tell, this is actually a tool chest that we have converted into a medical supply chest. And this goes with us when we travel. So you can see Liani has many things that come with her. She has a very large landscape of things in our house. So the things that she needs for school and how AT helps her in her education. You see her on the left, she is lying down. This right above her is her eye gaze communication device. You can see more of a front view of that. That has to be positioned specifically for her to be able to use that. She also uses her robot that you see on the right. And at the top of this is where her face appears when she is logged into the robot. We've got some clothes on it so people know that it actually is representing a person, and her name tag so they know who she is. The wheel that you see at the bottom is how she gets around in class. It can go 360 degrees and in all different directions. In addition to this, she also uses an iPad at home to be able to control the robot in the classroom. And she also uses a school Chromebook so that she can see the slides that the teacher is using in the classroom. Next slide, please. So this gives you an idea of her eye gaze communication device. These are just they're actually two different pictures with two different screens. For those of you not familiar with it, it essentially has, it's a Windows computer And at the bottom, it has a tracking device where it tracks her eyes. She clicks on things similar to how we click on things on a computer. She holds her gaze on whatever she wants to click on, and then it puts it up into her sentence building, which is the blue section at the top. If you look on the left picture, you can see it is a full keyboard and of the alphabet, so she can spell anything that she would like to. On the right, these are some of the different categories of things that she can choose. So for example, there's animals, clothing, colors, holidays, nature. And then as she clicks on those, there are several other pages of things that are organized for her. There's also navigation keys on the left in the white on both of these. These are similar to when you're on a website and you're trying to navigate through the menu. These help her kind of get to certain pages quickly. She can get to both her keyboard through this, and then on the right, she can get to her topics. Her sentences go in the top in the blue. When she gets her sentence built, then she clicks on the speech button or the speak button, and she's able to, it says it out in the voice that you heard her introduce herself. We have learned that her being able to use this eye gaze communication device is very similar to her being bilingual. She's hearing the language that I'm speaking now, and she translates it into the language of her communication device. Now you can move. So this is Liani's school setup. These are actually the same pictures. One is just a blown up version of the picture on the left. So on the left above her again is her eye gaze communication device. And you will also see that the iPad, this is the iPad that she controls the robot in the classroom with. She's able to do that. If you can see on the right, her little hand touching the iPad screen, that is how she controls the robot in the classroom, by using her index finger and moving her wrist and her arm to get to that. In addition to that, you'll see on the left picture, this is her school Chromebook. On the robot screen, it is a little bit difficult to see the slides that the teacher is using in the classroom. So we have the Chromebook for her to be able to see the exact same slides that the kids are using in the classroom. And she connects through a lot of technology, but to kind of make that a little bit more realistic, this is how we make that happen. On the left is us visiting her classroom. This is myself, her father, and Liani. And you notice there's no kids or anyone else in the classroom with us. So this is how we make the classroom that she sees on the screen a little bit more realistic to her. She's able to go into the school when no one else is there a couple times a year to see all the things that she sees on the screen and know that it's a real place where she's at. In addition to that, these two pictures are Liani visiting her classmates at recess when it's outdoors. We try to go once a week when the weather is nice, for her to see that the kids on the screen are real kids, and for them to see that Liani's not just a robot, she is a person behind that. In the middle picture, her friends are showing her around on the playground, everything that they play with. And the picture on the right is Liani's best friend laying on her and giving her a hug. And now we are going to just give you a better idea of what the robot looks like, both in the classroom and at home.
My name is Liani. I am 6 years old.
We're gonna get started with our.
You got your pajamas on?
You have your pajamas on?
I have my pajamas on. Your pajamas, I see.
And your moose ears look great.
You do like spiders? I like spiders too, Leonie. I like spiders too. I'll be at my desk if you want to talk to me.
She's watching her friends on the screen, and she's making her robot turn around and dance with her friends.